All right. I can see comment sections, so we are good to go. What's going on, Chain Gang? How we doing tonight? Hope everybody had a good last couple of days. I finished up my, third day of work now? No, that's not true. I worked 2 days last week. I mean, it was all an onboarding process, so it's not, I wasn't seeing patients last week or anything, but I have seen a few this week, and things are going well. All I'm doing is shadowing a couple of occupational therapists and trying to learn the ropes. My new company thinks that it's helpful for everyone to shadow everyone else. So while I work in nursing, I get to go shadow physical therapists and occupational therapists and the speech language pathologist and a social worker. So I have followed a speech pathologist and a couple of physical therapists so far, and it's interesting to see what they do. I've worked with occupational therapists and physical therapists before, and social workers, and speech pathologists, and so I have a general idea of what they do, but for someone who has no experience working in home health or in the healthcare field, getting exposure to all those different disciplines. How you get cheese, huh? How you doing? Not gonna... Some people's usernames are... That one's probably safe. I'm not gonna lie. That username's probably safe that just commented. But some people's usernames you cannot read on stream. You gotta be pretty careful. I've seen some doozies. The dedication. Pure Serenity, how you doing? Yeah, we're almost done. One of the reasons that I work on the same project over and over and over again until it's done, unless I run out of rings or something, like this cube here, I ran out of rings. I'm waiting on some more to come in, right? I stopped working on that. Actually, I was working on this. I stopped to work on that because that's a paid commission. Ran out of rings. Came back to this. And the reason I do the same one over and over and over again, unless something comes up like a commission or I run out of rings, is because it demonstrates to people who are watching that this is what it takes to make a large chainmail item. So, and eventually I'll have streams where I make smaller stuff, but I've got a lot of big projects to work through. Getting through them one by one. And then I have ideas for more big projects. So, how is everyone tonight? What's going on in your world? See here, Tuesday night, I had a bad night. I went to bed Tuesday night thinking everything was hunky-dory, and I laid down about 11:30, and by 11:45, I thought that I was leaving this mortal plane. I thought it was over for me. I had a fire in my chest that radiated to my back and my neck, and I thought that was it. I thought I was going. So I got down to I had to go to the emergency room, and they evaluated me and said that it wasn't cardiac related, which is good. And they gave me some proton pump inhibitors and some what's called a GI cocktail, a gastrointestinal cocktail, which is like lidocaine, milk mag, something to coat your stomach. And basically I was having a severe indigestion issue. And having worked in cardiac step-down unit before, not a cardiac step-down unit, I was, patients would come in with heart problems or suspected heart problems. They would be taken to the cardiac cath unit, right? They would have their catheterization, have their heart checked. They might get a pacemaker installed. They might have part of the atrioventricular nerve burned away. And then they'd go to recovery after the catheterization procedure. And then they would come back down to the unit I worked on. So working in that unit, anyone suspected of a heart issue that came in through the ER would come to us. So I've seen several times when people would come thinking they're having a heart attack, and it turns out it's just really bad indigestion. And I thought that these people were overreacting. No, not at all. Having experienced this incident myself now, that was the most painful thing I've ever felt in my life. I don't really have a history of indigestion or anything. I don't know what caused it, but I was at the ER till like 5 o'clock in the morning. I came home. Well, I got fixed up. I didn't have any pain by the time I left. I got home, went to bed at 5 in the morning, got 2 hours of sleep, and then got up, took my kid to school, and then went to work. And that was not fun. I was a very sleepy guy all day. So that was my Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. And then I was on doctor's orders to rest yesterday. So I sat upstairs actually, when I came home, I was scared to eat, but I went to lay down in my bed, and I started getting that same feeling all over again. So I sat up, I went downstairs, and I got a chair downstairs to take naps in, and I slept in that for 2 hours. What am I making? How you doing? Thanks for the follow, appreciate you. I am making a moderately sized chainmail jelly cube. One ring at a time. And we're almost done. We're getting there. So, we've got 26 layers completed, so 13 rows, and we're going to 29. 29 layers, or 15 rows, or it's really like 14 and a half, but who's counting? Excuse me. So, and this will replace the rubber band ball over at my bar that is slowly falling apart. The only way to fix a rubber band ball is to add more rubber bands. And my source of rubber bands was pharmacies around the city that would send their patients' medications to the jail that I worked at. And I would take the rubber bands and I turned them into a rubber band ball. It was about 5.5 inches in diameter. But it didn't last. So now I need a new fidget toy for my bar. And I traded for these rings. I made another cube that was 12 rows on each side. And the person who I traded it for sent me these rings to make this cube. So this was taking up an inordinate amount of space. So it was my next project that I decided to work on, to get it done and get it out of the way. I've got a multitude of projects laying around that either need upgraded, updated, improved in some way, finished, and or a bunch of piles of rings of projects that I don't even know what to make with those rings. So I got to figure out what to make with them. And the goal is to clear this backlog of crap I have laying around so that I can order more rings and make more cool stuff. Though this time I won't order any rings without having an idea of what I'm going to try and use them for. Whereas a lot of the old projects and piles of rings that I have are from me just randomly ordering stuff. I was like, oh yeah, I want to try and work with that material. I wonder what that's like. And then not having any plan about what I was going to make. So hopefully in the future there'll be a lot less mess. And I'll have a nice little workspace available. So chainmail is one of those things that you can make pretty much anything you can think of out of it. It's just a matter of figuring out how. And while there are many people who are better at this craft than I am, I do okay. I make some pretty cool stuff. Like, there are 2 people making some really large dragons out there right now. And each one is more impressive than the last. So, I'm excited to see those come together. FC Mail, how you doing? Barb, what's going on? And thank you. Alright, I gotta adjust my position here. FC Mail, what are you up to tonight? And Barb, what are you doing? For anyone wondering, I'm not talking to myself. I'm streaming to multiple platforms. I've got TikTok over here, and then X, YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook over here on my computer. Birding a flight to Kentucky. Right on. Forgive my ignorance, but what does birding a flight mean? As a flightless mammal and as someone who doesn't fly, not that I haven't, I just don't anymore. I'm assuming you'll try. It's very glitchy tonight, huh? I'm not dropping any frames. I wonder... Like, my computer is hardlined in, so I wondered if you got storms going on there? Oh, boarding. Boarding, okay. Right on. I know what boarding a flight is. After my 2 trips overseas, back and forth multiple times, and dealing with the TSA and the comings and goings of travel, I opted years ago. It's like, I'm just not going to fly anymore. I will drive my truck to wherever I need to go. And if that means that it takes me 2 to 3 days to get there, so be it. Excuse me. Now, in case of emergency, or in the case where my brother wants me to go visit him in Japan because he's stationed out there, I will make the exception, the rare exception, to go on a plane. I just got so tired of planes. So I don't enjoy them at all. I'd rather, especially like, I like to have my vehicle wherever I'm going. I don't like to rent vehicles. I want my truck, and I can drive my truck all over the place. Speaking of my truck, I just had my timing chain replaced earlier this year, which was like $4,000. Okay. And a week and a half ago, 2 weeks now, something like that, I was coming home from chaperoning my kids' field trip from school, and I was passing someone, and check engine light came on. And as I was accelerating, it felt like I was, like the engine was missing, and that I was like losing power, or skipping power to the back wheels. You'll follow you. Got to get off now. FC Mail, you have a good night. I appreciate that. If you are a chainmail artist yourself, which it looks like you are, I will probably follow you right back. Big proponent of supporting other chainmail artists because nobody else does. Okay, so anyway, yeah. Power skipping to the back wheels, felt like it was the motor was missing, and check engine light came on. So I was like, crap. This is gonna be another multi-$1,000 cost for me. But I finally got my truck into my brother-in-law, and I had left it there overnight at his shop, dropped the keys off, and went home. And he worked on it, not today, yesterday. And he gives me a call. And he goes, hey, your check engine light says there's a lot of misfires in your engine. I was like, okay, well, that checks out. That's kind of what it felt like. And he goes, have you ever changed your spark plugs? And I said to him, I've never changed them. Have you ever changed them? You're my mechanic. And he goes, you're supposed to change them at 60,000 miles. I was like, did you tell me to change them at 60,000 miles? And he's like, I don't know. I don't think we've ever changed them. I was like, all right, well, go look. My truck has 140,000 miles on it. So anyway, since I didn't get my spark plugs changed and he's my mechanic that I use, it's his fault, not mine. I'm sticking to that story. So, but yeah, he got everything fixed. I drove the truck home, and the engine was only misfiring when I was accelerating at like highway speeds. So to get from like 50 to 70 to get onto the highway, it was doing this weird skip thing. And I did that on the way home multiple times, and it was a smooth ride. Which is good, because I'm tired of replacing all the parts on my truck. Like, I'm almost at a new vehicle at this point. And I've said this previously. And it's like my general rule is that if I pay more, unfortunately the problem with that is new vehicles are 2 to 3 times what I paid for my truck. So I'm trying to drag out my truck's existence for as long as I can. I don't want a vehicle payment. It's like I paid the truck off a long time ago, and Mike Rowe, it's an F-150 EcoBoost. A Ford F-150 EcoBoost, and Mike Rowe did an infomercial on it, and he promised me I would get to 250,000 miles on that truck. And I'm only at 147 right now, so I've got another 100,000 to go before I'm happy with the life of that truck. So I'm hoping another 10 years for that. And so far, most of the stuff that I've had to fix or replace on it has been wheels, oil changes, maintenance stuff, right? I do need new windshield wipers. Okay, the timing chains, they wear out. That is a thing. And then the engine misfiring, spark plugs wear out, right? But so long as I don't have to replace the engine or transmission, knock on wood, anytime in the next 10 years, I'll be pretty happy with the value of that vehicle. It's It's like I drove my last vehicle into the ground. It was a 2002 Mitsubishi Diamante. I got it in '05. And silly me, I was in Louisiana, and right after Katrina and Rita, right? So you can't buy used cars right after hurricanes in the area because you don't want to end up with a flood vehicle. So my roommate drove me 4 hours to Houston, which was very nice of him. And I probably never paid him back for that. But he basically dropped me off at the CarMax in Houston and left. He's like, you're coming home with a car. I don't care what it is. It's not my business. But I'm not staying around to watch you test drive vehicles. So I ended up picking out this black car with a black leather interior living in Fort Polk, Louisiana. Which, hot, humid, yeah, not a terrible place to drive a black car with a black leather interior. And then a year later, I got stationed in Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio, Texas. Now, San Antonio, Texas is a bad place to have a black car with a black leather interior. But I kept the car anyway because I am a silly person who makes bad decisions. Excuse me. And I drove it until, I was putting more money in repairs than I was than what the vehicle was worth, and I think I got rid of it I got it in '05, it was 2002, I think, and I finally got rid of it in 2013, which is when I got my truck. So it had a good long life, and a lot of stuff really worked. Most of the Diamante worked really well still. The issue was I couldn't pass emissions because the catalytic converter went out. I needed a new one. What am I making? How we doing? Concrete, what's going on? Makes me think of the Flintstones. I don't remember what year it came out. It came out in the 90s with John Goodman and what's her name? Who's the girl that plays Wilma? And a number of other actors. Halle Berry's in it. And the quarry owner, right? Like at the end of the movie when they dump the concrete on the bad guy. He goes, I'll call it concrete after my daughter, Concretia. I'm making a moderately sized chainmail jelly cube. One ring at a time. Putting it together. We're almost done. We got 2.5 more rows. 2.5 more layers, rather. Speaking of movies, The Flintstones is a pretty good movie. If you've never seen it, it's worth a watch. Looks cool. Thank you. Uh-oh. My sinuses are acting up. Excuse me. Okay, so not last night because I was on doctor's orders to rest, but the night before, when I was streaming, we were talking about movies you should watch. Like Boondock Saints 3 is coming out, and then I got talking about Guy Ritchie movies, right? So while I was on doctor's orders to rest, I went looking for something to watch, and there was a movie that Guy Ritchie directed called The Gentleman, and I had never seen it. But on Netflix is a series called The Gentleman. And the first 2 episodes are directed by Guy Ritchie, and it's a TV show. So I ended up watching that for like 6 hours last night. I got through several episodes, and it's pretty good. It's not as good as, say, like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels or Snatch, but I enjoyed it. I don't know how many episodes in these series are left, but I didn't finish it. So, other than that, that's the most TV I've watched in quite a while. It was nice to take a break. Actually, it was better to get some sleep. So, Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, I was up until about 5 a.m. And it was not fun. I can do the whole 24-hour thing, or I could, when I was 20. I used to pull 24-hour guard duty when I was in the military. That, a couple energy drinks, a couple snacks, some movies. No problem. If I'm up past midnight anymore, I'm just, punishing myself the next day. Right? I must really dislike myself if I'm if I'm up past midnight anymore. Because when I get done streaming, usually go upstairs, make sure all the dishes are done, food's put away, coffee pot's ready for tomorrow morning. Do all that. Sit down, doom scroll for a little bit. About 11:30, 11:45. Start getting ready for bed. And then I'm up at 7 to get the kid to school, all that jazz. And if I don't adhere to that, like if I stay up late on the weekends, I'm not doing anything the next day. It's like I'm too old to stay up past midnight. I remember being a kid and wanting to stay up late and, until the wee hours of the morning. And it was cool. It was cool to stay up until 3 a.m. Not anymore, man. I tell you what. Like, I cannot I cannot hack it anymore. Mac, what's going on? How have I been? Aside from going to the hospital, aside from going to the ER the other night, I've been good. Literally thought that I was on my way out the other night and went to the ER. And it turns out I just had a tummy ache. And that tummy ache was the most painful thing I have ever experienced in my life. I was getting ready for bed, or I was laying down to go to sleep. And I started having some pain in my chest. And after about 20 minutes of discomfort, the pain had gotten so bad that I thought I was like having a heart attack. And I went to the ER. They checked my labs. When they check your labs, they're looking for a troponin level. A troponin is a hormone that is released by damaged cardiac tissue. So they're looking for that. They didn't find any, and they did an EKG, and they said that my heart rhythm was normal. And then they gave me some a GI cocktail, which is like lidocaine and is it milk and magnesia? And it's to coat your esophagus and your stomach wall. And then they gave me some Protonix, which is a proton pump inhibitor, which is it prevents your proton pumps in your stomach from secreting stomach acid. And they took my tummy ache away. Basically, that's what it boils down to. And I had seen people go through this in the hospital before, and I thought, it's just some indigestion, This is not that. This is by far the most painful thing that I've ever been through. And I'm not going to lie, it scared the crap out of me. I was scared to eat the next day. So, and after going to the hospital and all that rigmarole, I finally got home and went to go lay in my bed. And when I laid down, I started feeling that same pain creeping back. So I went downstairs and slept in the chair for 2 hours before getting up to go to work. But other than that, after finally getting a decent night's sleep last night, I'm much better. I'm back to my old self. So I'm just, stomach issue. Okay, whatever. And it's not like I ate shortly before bedtime. We had dinner at 6:30. We had McDonald's. But we had dinner like hours before I laid down to go to bed. So I don't know. And I didn't have anything to drink, I'd had some coffee earlier in the day. I don't know what triggered this event, but it was definitely not fun. So, and with my mom having passed away of an irregular heartbeat, and my dad recently having a heart attack, and my brother saying that he had the same irregular heartbeat as my mom, my focus was on it being a cardiac issue. And so that only made me more agitated and anxious. Lil Sassy, how you doing? Did they your gallbladder? No, they didn't. They didn't. My gallbladder. They didn't remove it. If that's what you're asking. They gave me some. Some Protonics and a GI cocktail, and called it a day. Oh, did they check my gallbladder? Like, she pressed on above my liver where my gallbladder would be. She palpated that space to check and see if it was inflamed or swollen. That's all they did. I don't think they looked at any lab. Well, maybe they did. I don't know what labs they drew. They gave me my discharge paperwork, and they didn't give me my lab paperwork, which I think is hot garbage. I should call them and ask. But, and here's one thing that I was unimpressed by, and this is definitely going to get passed up the chain. The care I received was very good. The people were efficient and pretty timely. They took a while on that. Here's the fun part. Before I get to my complaints, my nose is now killing me. Excuse me. So the GI cocktail is like a coating for your esophagus and your stomach, and it's got lidocaine in it. And when I drank that, I couldn't swallow anymore. It felt like my throat had swollen shut. Right? So all of a sudden I'm gagging. I feel like I can't breathe or swallow or anything. So on top of all the pain that I had, all of a sudden now I feel like my throat's swelling shut. And I had to check my drawers after that to make sure that I hadn't, done the thing. Yeah, that pain turns out you have a big gallstone. Oh no. They took an x-ray. I don't know if they got a view big enough to check for gallstones. I can't imagine that they wouldn't have gotten my gallbladder in the chest x-ray that they took. I've seen hundreds of chest x-rays, and normally where your gallbladder is above your liver, it should be. They should have been able to see if there were any gallstones in there. It would be odd if I had one and they hadn't seen it, right? But they didn't mention specifically that they had checked for gallstones. Okay, so back to my complaint. I was treated very well. Everything was pretty timely. I was in and out, in a matter of 5 hours, 4.5 hours, right? Not a bad trip to the ER, okay? But I had an IV placed in my arm, and once when I had the medication administered, and once when I had some labs drawn, they did not swab the hub of the IV catheter. It's a little plastic piece on the end that they attach syringes to. They didn't swab it with alcohol. They didn't clean it at all. And I was too out of it to process what I had just seen, but I did notice it. So it's that's going to be included in my response to their request for a survey. Okay? So just, if you have an IV and someone tries to inject something into you without cleaning the end of the IV where they are attaching syringes or lab tubes or whatever to, if they do it without cleaning it with alcohol or something, some type of cleansing agent, complain immediately if you're aware enough to do so. I was a bit too agitated. Yeah, and these are nurses, and that is not, they know better. So, that was helpful too. The PA that I saw was about to delve into this long explanation of what was going on and blah, 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 and I was like, I'm an RN, just, here's what I need. I'm good with everything you have to say about it. Let's go. I'll spare you the talking. So, anyway, yeah. If someone has access to your veins or your arteries through a tube that is attached to the outside of your body, whether you have a PICC line or a dialysis shunt that's been accessed or an IV, make sure that they clean it before they use it. Other than that, everything was fine. And I have a pretty well built up immune system. And it's not like it was brand new, out of the box. It wasn't old and dirty. So, I'm not worried about me getting sick. But what if I was a cancer patient on chemotherapy who had no immune system? And they pushed an IV flush through your IV without cleaning it, right? That could spell the end for someone. So it's very important. If that pain comes back, try 1 ounce of apple cider vinegar with water. I did try some baking soda and water because it was indigestion before it was this fiery pain throughout my chest. I've never tried apple cider vinegar. I have some. I will give that a try. If that pain comes back, I'm just going to punch it until it goes away. I never, literally the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. Right? It's I've had pain. I've had bad pain before. I've had injuries before that were very painful. This was, I think that I'm not going to be here anymore kind of pain. So, yeah. Not a good night that night. But I'm fine. Everything's okay. Yeah, you totally thought you were having a heart attack? Yeah, me too. This nondescript referred pain that went up my jaw on both sides and out to my shoulders on both sides and from my chest to my back, that it was just this burning fire sensation. It's crazy. It's crazy, I tell you. The only thing... Okay. Well, no, I probably can't talk about that. How to phrase this without getting it, what do you call it? getting the Van Hammer. Okay, so there's this baseball-sized object that good guys throw at bad guys, right? And then that baseball-sized object fragments off, right? Now, some of those baseball-sized objects are made from a substance called phosphorus, and if that happens to be the color, if that phosphorus happens to be the color of my skin, it burns whenever there's oxygen present, right? So the only thing I can equate that pain to is to a guy who's given his testimony many times. He has multiple pieces of this phosphorus in his body, and whenever he has to have a surgery or something, if they open it up, that piece of phosphorus reignites and begins to burn. That is the level of pain in which, like, I think I experienced it. I probably didn't, right? I can't imagine having a piece of that inside of me. So, the worst pain you felt was abdominal pain from lactose intolerance, worse than broken bones? Yeah, I'll bet. That is the gallbladder pain? Yeah. Which, okay, so that makes sense. Like, I've had indigestion, right? Little indigestion, little stomach acid, okay? And, as I said before, this is not that. This was nothing similar, right? This was just this burning sensation throughout my torso. And so it would make sense that a gallbladder would cause that, right? Just because of how different it is from, a little indigestion you can fix with some Pepto-Bismol. Excuse me. So, not a fun time. But hopefully I'm through it, and hopefully it never comes back. And if it does, I will know what to do. I'll know what it is, basically. The problem with that pain is that anytime you have pain in your upper torso, right, there's so much here, right? Your esophagus, your windpipe, your lungs, your heart, right? There's a ton of things that are in here. If you're having pain in here, like there's a problem. You shouldn't have pain there. If you had to stop eating fast food, I should stop eating fast food because I'm fat. Okay. So here's a fun story. So I just started a new job, and I don't like wearing scrub pants. I'm an RN. I don't like wearing scrub pants in Wisconsin winters, and it's about to get cold here. So I thought I'd be slick and order some EMS pants, which are heavy canvas style pants that more durable than scrubs, lot thicker, and much warmer, right? So I ordered these pants, and I just looked at the waistband of the jeans I was wearing and ordered the same size. And they're a little tight. So I need to stop eating fast food because I need to drop about 80 pounds. And hopefully being up and moving around. For the last 2.5 years, I've pretty much just been sitting here opening and closing rings, right? And then a number of factors went into my decision to return to work. But one of them was so that I could do more of this, right? But if I want to do more chainmail and have funding for chainmail, I got to go and get funds for chainmail, right? There were a lot more other factors to this decision, but that was definitely one of them. So Where was I going with that? Talking about pants too. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm hoping that now that I'm up moving around, even if I am sitting in a car for half an hour at a time, I'll be up moving around, assessing patients and changing PICC line dressings and doing wound care and all that fun stuff, right? And that activity increase will help me fit into my pants better. My very tight EMS pants that... there was a term in the military. In the military, we wear camouflage, right, as our daily uniform. When I joined, we had the BDU, the battle dress uniform, right? And we had forest and desert. And then it got changed to the ACU, which was a digital pattern of like green and blue, this blue-green cream funky color combination. And it wasn't very camouflagey. But anyway, some of the individuals in the Army, their uniforms would be very tight. And we would call that spandaflage. Because it was like a spandex uniform that was stretched out to fit their physique. So these EMS pants are kind of wearing on me like a pair of spandaflage uniform pants. They're very tight. So, but yeah, hopefully I'll be up, I'll be moving around more, and lose a little weight, eat a little more healthier. And my EMS spandaflage pants will become regular pants. They're really cool pants. And if you're in the medical field, I definitely recommend them over scrubs if you work outside of a facility, right? Like, there's a reason you wear scrubs inside a facility, because you want something lightweight and easy to wash and something you can move around in. But if you're outside the facility running around like I am, in the elements, there's no reason to wear scrubs and be cold. There was one guy. Oh, I don't remember his name. I remember his nickname. And he had his BDU top was a spandaflage top, right? And his situation was that he was a bigger guy, and we called him Buttons, right? And the reason we called him Buttons is because on a BDU top you have buttons much like this, and his were pulling apart, so his buttons were just screaming at how tight that BDU top was. What the hell was his actual name? I feel like a bad person now that I remember the nickname we made fun of him with and not his real name. I'm okay with being a bad person. I'll remember it later. He was a weird dude, Buttons was. There's just something off about him. He'd made it he was a staff NCO, and I'm sure outside of the military, a likable guy, but he's kind of the guy that he's always got a BS story for you. Like, nothing's ever really his fault. He's always getting screwed, but he's got all these big plans on how he's going to make it right. He's that kind of guy. And we called him Buttons. he wasn't. He was never in my chain of command, so I never really had much to do with him. As I was a nurse, but the other combat medics that I worked with directly, he was one of their supervisors, so they had lots to say about him. That is the only predominant nickname I can think of someone we had in the military. I know we had more, especially on my first unit that I deployed with. I remember being there in Iraq, right? And I remember a lot of the injuries and treatments that I administered. But the free time and the calls home and the day-to-day stuff, I don't remember a lot of. Like, I have a few key memories of the dining facility. I have a few key memories of calling home, but yeah, a lot of it's kind of a blur. Probably because it's just like day-to-day stuff. Or because it was traumatic and I've shut it out of my brain. There's that. What do you mean you lived in an area where people were firing stuff at you for a year and you don't remember all of it and you shut it out? That's totally a thing, by the way. No, don't fall over. I just set you up there. So, alright, enough about me. How about you? What are you guys up to tonight? Who's got a funny nickname for a friend or family member, and what is it based on? I'm not the type of person who could ever come up with someone else's nickname. Like, my son has a ton of nicknames, right? Like, well, nothing I can repeat here. I'm just kidding. I could probably tell you all of them. I'm not mean to my son. But it's normal for a dad to give his son nicknames. Like Boogerface. Right? But I learned, I don't know, I was probably in my 20s. I'm not the type of person who is capable of pulling pranks on someone or giving someone a nickname or being clever and having it end up in a good result. Like, if I tried to prank someone, they would get hurt. Right? If I gave someone a nickname, it wouldn't stick. And if I tried to be clever, I would be caught and punished. Right? Yeah. So I've never given anyone a nickname besides my son and the dogs. I call them lots of different things. The two furry creatures that live in my house. And only a select few of those terms are nice terms. I'm not the biggest fan of the little shit weasels that live in my house. They're fine. They're good enough dogs, but they're really not living up to the whole man's best friend kind of thing. They just shit on my carpet. So, and I don't know what it is that I can't prank someone without them getting hurt. Like, I would never, like, if you were standing at a desk, right, and you had a chair behind you, or if you were sitting at a desk and you had a chair behind you, and I pulled your chair, slightly back, right? You wouldn't like stumble back into the chair and like, have a moment of panic. No, you'd reach back for your chair and you'd fall on your ass and break your tailbone. That's what would happen. When your brother-in-law was at boot camp, we called. Your brother-in-law was at boot camp, we called. Weedle Muffin. Gaming Bricks, how you doing? And thank you. That's okay. So you know those YouTubers that like go around pranking people, and like they do it so much that they get successful at it. I could never do that. Every time I tried to prank someone, it would just come across as rude and cringy. I just don't have the nature for it. I have no natural inclination, and I don't know why. I just don't. That looks like it took a huge amount of time. Yeah. So mathematically, there's 18,200 plus rings in the final product. I'm not quite finished yet, right? And in theory, I'm supposed to be able to weave 200 rings an hour, right? But in reality, I'm probably... Okay, so that works out to 91, 92 hours. But in reality... I'm probably around 120, if not more. So, I've been working on this for about 6 weeks, and I put a lot of time into it some days. So, and I had a chunk that I started with. So, what inspired the term Weedle Muffin? If you don't mind me asking. He didn't like his Wheaties, and his favorite Pokemon was Squirtle. So that became Weedle. And he had a muffin top. I don't know. I don't know how people get their nicknames. I never had any cool nicknames myself. Maybe that's why. See here, nicknames I've been called. Okay, so there was a guy in my first unit, last name was Whiting, right? And you heard it from a 90s comedian. We knew his sergeant would call it out in front of everyone. So you wrote to Weedle Muffin and addressed it that way. Dear Weedle Muffin. That's hilarious. I think when I was in basic training, someone sent a care package, and you got to open the care packages in front of the drill sergeants, and someone had sent one of their kids the book Why Does Poo Float? And we had the drill sergeant out in front reading off Why Poo Floats from that book. Rocking with the Locks and Ollie. How you doing? Oh, man. Oh, okay, yeah. So, guy in my unit named Whiting, last name. My last name is White, so he was called Whitey, and I got called number 2 because Austin Powers was recently out around the same time, and there's a number 2 in Austin Powers, right? Pretty sure most people who ever called me that meant, the number 2, the bathroom number 2. Change your name. You were Rockin' Robin 320. Okay. So I wasn't particularly fond of the nickname number 2. That didn't really stick for very long, but other than that, that's the only, like, I'm sure many people have many nicknames for me that they call me behind my back. Uh-oh, puzzle piece of death. I'm a real person. There we go. Who does number 2 work for? That's right. If you've never seen the Austin Powers movies, I definitely recommend it. They're all pretty good. In line with early 2000s comedy, which was... we don't get movies like that very much anymore. So... it's definitely... well, okay. There's a lot of jokes in it that you wouldn't see in movies today, right? Which there are a multitude of reasons for. And they made better movies then than they do now. So it is a product of its time. Still worth seeing. There's a lot of pop culture references that were gleaned from the Austin Powers movies and other similar comedies of that time. Which, oh man, that was the thing. Pop culture references. Growing up, I didn't have cable. Okay. My mother watched Oprah during the day and Friends at night and whatever else was on that one channel that my mother watched. And then we watched Sound of Music 150,000 times when I was growing up. Okay. My first CD was a Weird Al Yankovic CD. If you are gathering like my ability to reference pop culture when I was young, it did not exist. Okay. You grew up on Blazing Saddles. There we go. If you haven't seen Blazing Saddles, go watch it. It's one of those must-sees. Also, check out Young Frankenstein. Not nearly as provocative as Blazing Saddles, but a awesome movie with Gene Wilder, who's also in Blazing Saddles. That's the connection, right? So I had no pop culture references growing up. I had no idea why all of a sudden my classmates were screaming at me, you know, "You'll be living in a van down by the river," right? Very famous SNL skit. I had no idea who Chris Farley was until I was much older. So eventually, these things were shown to me by someone. You love Young Frankenstein? Yeah. Shadow, how you doing tonight? I eventually learned what these things were, and now, through the power of social media, I'm able to keep up with obscure pop culture references that I may have missed, because I'll see someone saying it or something. Thought you meant I didn't know him now? No. Like, when he was on SNL, when he was writing for Saturday Night Live, and all of the other classmates started repeating those lines, we didn't have memes back then. We didn't have the internet. All we had were these ADHD kids repeating SNL skits as loud as they can through the hallways of our school. Right? And that was how pop culture got spread. If you didn't have any other access to it, right? So, I had no idea where these kids were getting these lines from. I didn't know what they referenced until I was much older. I was going somewhere with that. Basematic or all Drug Olympics are great episodes. Yeah. Chris is the best. Yep. hard to beat talent like that. Okay, so the point is, don't go back and watch the Austin Powers movies, right? If you've never seen them, just for pop culture reference, right? They're pretty good movies. They're pretty standalone in their own right. But don't be like me and not understand pop culture references because you don't, you're a shut-in, introverted child living in a rural community that doesn't have any friends. And your parents don't let you watch anything on TV, and you don't have cable. I can recite the entirety of The Sound of Music and sing all the songs with perfect pitch. So I have that. Just not pop culture references. The hills are alive with the sound of music. Actually, also watch Moulin Rouge. It's a musical. It's an excellent musical. Us Gen Xers were raised on sarcasm for sure. Yeah. Yep. No, there's a definite like. I don't know. You can tell by the comedians, right? Like the stuff that Richard Pryor says on stage and Eddie Murphy before he contracted with Disney to make a dozen movies, were a lot different than what you see on stage today. Just so you guys are aware. Comedy used to be quite different back in the day. And I think, I don't know, I think that situation is improving. I think it's making a comeback. Things like, what do you call it? I don't watch the show, I just ever see clips. It's called Kill Tony. I guess it's the #1 comedy show out there. I've only seen a few clips that I enjoyed, but Husband of Mine, Wedding Song, some Moulin Rouge. Let's see here. Okay. It's not going to be Roxanne. It's not going to be Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. I give up. What song from Moulin Rouge did you pick? I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember the soundtrack. I've listened to the soundtrack 100,000 times, but I don't. Okay. No, that's nice. I'd have to... I can picture the scene in my head. I don't remember. I'd have to Google it. I should just go watch the movie again. I actually own that one. There's a thing. Physical media. I was talking about this 2 nights ago too. Get yourself a copy of some DVDs. Go to a used DVD store and just buy a bunch of old DVDs. Funny thing about that is that they'll have a lot of the same movies over and over and over again because people have a tendency to purchase a lot and then keep like the really good stuff. Like you'll go and you'll find 100 copies of Cheaper by the Dozen with Steve Martin and Bonnie Hunt, right? What you won't find is like Sin City, right? You won't find a copy of it in a used DVD store. And if you do, grab it, right? Here's one. Dogma, right? With Kevin Smith. Written, directed, and acted by Kevin Smith. Okay? It was any of his Weinstein productions. Okay? So, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, I don't remember, Clerks 1. right? So if you see any, you won't find them in a used DVD store, but if you do, grab them because one, they don't make anymore, and two, people don't give those up. They don't give them up because you can't purchase new released copies or anything. Because Kevin Smith, after the whole Weinstein issue of him, did what he did, right? Kevin Smith he canceled the contract with the Weinstein production company, and you're not going to find those DVDs in a used DVD store, right? Because those are the good ones that people hold on to. What you will find is 100 copies of, Father of the Bride, or, I don't know, some other not as good movie. Like, you'll find, I'm trying to think of, like, your generic run-of-the-mill movie that everybody's seen, but it wasn't good enough to hold on to, which there are a lot of. Like, all I can think of are the winners. You're not going to find someone's... nobody's going to sell their copy of Gangs in New York, right? Nobody's going to sell their copy of Man on Fire. Nobody's going to sell their copy, right? So, if you find them in a used DVD store, and by all means, go look, because physical media is becoming a thing again, as digital media companies keep raising their prices, and you'll have access to something one day and then it's gone the next because the contract ran out, because the company didn't renew the royalties contract or something. All right. How did your bridesmaid lose your other song? Is it like on a CD or on a memory stick? It was on a CD. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. CDs for you kids in the audience. CDs are a thing. Let me show you what they look like. Okay. All right. This is a CD, right? We used to have CD drives in our computers. Your father might have some of these stashed away somewhere. And we used to burn music onto these CDs. And you're like, how do you burn a CD? What does that even mean? You could burn music? We used to download music illegally on the internet and burn it onto a CD using a laser. This was before streaming. Yeah, before streaming and before you had Wi-Fi in a building that you could just go to YouTube and imagine you go to you log into the Wi-Fi in a building that you're having your wedding in, and you go to YouTube to have this song played in your wedding because your bridesmaid lost a physical copy of it, and midway through this song, an ad interrupts your song. Perfect wedding. All right. Oh, here's some good news. I do believe that I have enough rings to finish this cube with some extra. Right? This layer that I'm working on right here will finish row 14. And we've only got a little bit left on each side. Right? And then I have at least there's got to be 1,200 rings in there. I may have... No, I'm good. I'm pretty good. I'm pretty sure that this is enough. I think. I'm feeling more confident that we have enough rings. So, there's that. That's a nice thing. And then the rings for the bronze and stainless cube that I've got going here, these should be in the next day or two. So hopefully it works out. There's no guarantee, but I think I have enough rings to finish this cube, and it should be fine. I will breathe a sigh of relief when we cross that line. But yeah, go to I want to go to I need to find one. I don't know of any used DVD stores. Okay, here's actually a great example. Okay, we have a PS3. We have a PS3 that we got back in the day. My son dragged it out of the closet somewhere and wanted me to help him clean it out. So we opened it up, sprayed all the dust out with an compressed air can, and got it running just fine. Runs great. Got him some new controllers because the old controllers were quite not working anymore. And we went to a used game store, 2 of them actually. And I know that they came out with games for kids, right? I know that they did. I remember playing them. When we went to the used game store, there were a lot of copies of the same game, right? And very few copies, like, there were a couple copies of, say, Call of Duty Modern Warfare for... Actually, did Modern Warfare come out on PS3? It did, right? Because Call of Duty, the World War II version, was PlayStation 2. And I know that because I have the game upstairs. So, we went to the used game store. And aside from some really unique games... I don't know, like an original Nintendo Zelda game. Cartridge. That was priced at, like, I don't know, $70 or something. There wasn't anything there on the PS3 that I would have brought home to play, that I would, had heard about or had heard good things about. And, all the games that were kind of trash, there were multiple copies of. So, it's the same in the used DVD store. But do go look and get your hands on physical copies of stuff. Just because, you're not going to have access to it anymore. Like, if Boondock Saints 3 comes out, you'll be able to put your hands on a physical copy of the first Boondock Saints movie, right? So Boondock Saints never had a theatrical release because Troy Duffy was an arrogant prick when he directed the movie,